Welcome, brave souls, to a realm where shadows whisper secrets too vile for the light. I'm here to unravel tales so chilling that your skin will crawl long after the silence falls. Help me reach my first 1,000 subscribers, hit that button now, and together, let's unearth the horrors awaiting us tonight. It was a typical early autumn evening in my quiet suburban town when my phone buzzed with an unexpected call. It was Mason, my old high school buddy who I hadn't heard from in years. His voice was a blast from the past, stirring up a mix of nostalgia and curiosity. He said he was back in town and wanted to catch up. Of course, I agreed to host him for the weekend. Friday night rolled around, and Mason showed up at my door much later than planned. He looked different, thinner, twitchy, and clearly sleep-deprived. As we chatted, I couldn't help but notice how he dodged questions about his job and kept glancing over his shoulder as if expecting someone to appear. The evening took a peculiar turn when Mason handed me a gift, an antique keychain with the number 14 carved into it. He mentioned it reminded him of our childhood, but there was something off about his smile. I tucked the keychain into my pocket, unsure of what to make of it, or the man standing before me. As the night wore on, my gut told me something wasn't right. But for now, I pushed those feelings aside, hoping to reconnect with an old friend. Little did I know, this was just the beginning of a journey that would unravel secrets and shake the foundations of my life. The next morning, I woke up with a strange sense of unease. Mason was already up, sitting at my kitchen table with a cup of coffee. As we started our day, his questions began to pile up, each one more peculiar than the last. He wanted to know about my job, the ins and outs of my home security system, and even my daily habits. At first, I thought it was just his way of catching up, but something felt off. He brushed off my puzzled looks with a casual shrug, claiming it was just curiosity. But the more he probed, the more I realized this wasn't the Mason I used to know. His eyes darted around the room, as if searching for something, and his questions grew more specific. Why did he need to know the model of my security system, or the times I typically left the house? I tried to steer the conversation back to old times, to memories of our high school days, but Mason's mind seemed elsewhere. His behavior was odd, and a part of me wished I had never agreed to this visit. As the day wore on, my gut feeling grew stronger. Something wasn't right, and I needed to figure out what Mason was really after. A few days after Mason left, my phone buzzed with an alert from my bank. I glanced at the screen and froze. A suspicious transfer of $3,000 to a foreign account had just been flagged. My heart raced as confusion and alarm washed over me. I immediately called my bank, trying to make sense of it all. The bank representative confirmed the transfer and advised me to contact the police. As I hung up, a sense of dread settled in. How could this happen? I hadn't authorized any such transaction. Before I could process it further, another notification popped up. My credit had been frozen due to involvement in other fraudulent transactions across several states. Sitting in my living room, I felt my world spinning out of control. I dialed the police, explaining the situation as calmly as I could. They promised to investigate, but the fear lingered. Was this connected to Mason's odd behavior during his visit? The pieces didn't fit together, but I knew I had to get to the bottom of it before my life unraveled any further. Detective Renee Park took charge of my case, and I could tell she was determined to get to the bottom of it. She brought in a tech expert to scan my house for any signs of a data breach. As they worked, I couldn't shake the feeling that Mason's visit was at the heart of all this chaos. The tech expert, a quiet guy with a keen eye, methodically went through my home, checking every device. It was when he got to the antique keychain Mason had given me that things took a turn. He held it up, examining it closely. And then His eyes widened in surprise. "It's a tracking device," he said, showing it to Detective Park. "A miniature one, capable of intercepting wireless signals and stealing personal data." My stomach dropped. That keychain, a supposed memento from our childhood, had been a silent mole inside my digital life since Mason's visit. The realization hit me hard. How could someone I trusted do this to me? As the tech expert continued his analysis, I knew we were just scratching the surface of a much deeper problem. At the police headquarters, the investigation into the tracking device deepened. Detective Park and her team dove into the cybercrime unit database, tracing the origins of the tracker. It turned out that the device was part of a larger network used in identity theft cases across the nation. I am not the first victim, and realizing that scares me. As they dug further, the trail led to a dark web portal where personal profiles were being auctioned off in real time. My heart sank when I saw my own profile among them, complete with my personal details and financial information. It felt like an invasion, a violation of my privacy on a scale I couldn't have imagined. The investigators worked tirelessly, piecing together the digital breadcrumbs left by the tracking device. Each new discovery painted a clearer picture of the sophisticated operation behind it all. I sat there, watching them work, feeling both grateful for their diligence and horrified at the extent of the damage done to my life. The shadows of the digital world had reached into my reality, and the fight to reclaim my identity had only just begun. The police set up a sting operation in a downtown warehouse, hoping to catch Mason in the act. They crafted a fake message from the hacker forum, offering him cash in exchange for clean identities. It was a risky move, but it paid off. Mason took the bait. I watched from a safe distance as the detectives closed in. The moment they apprehended him, a mix of relief and anger surged through me. Mason was handcuffed and taken into custody, his face a mask of shock and defeat. Under pressure during the interrogation, Mason finally cracked. He admitted to working with an international cybercrime ring that used planted trackers to steal identities. The organization, he explained, was structured so that members didn't know each other's real names, only using code words and drop points to communicate. Hearing this, I felt a sense of betrayal that cut deep. Mason, someone I once considered a friend, had been part of a criminal network that had turned my life upside down. As the reality sank in, I knew justice had to be served, but the scars of this ordeal would take a long time to heal. I found myself in the stark, cold jail interview room, facing Mason across a metal table. His eyes were pleading, his voice desperate, as he begged me to help him drop the charges. He claimed he never intended to harm me, that he was just a pawn in a larger game, but his words fell on deaf ears. The betrayal cut too deep, and I refused to help him. Leaving the jail, the weight of the situation settled heavily on my shoulders. Back at home, the quiet of my house felt different, now tainted by the echoes of what had happened. Mason was later imprisoned, but the impact on my life lingered. My sense of security was shattered. I spent weeks restoring my financial identity, constantly looking over my shoulder, wary of any new connections. The trust I once had in others had evaporated, replaced by a cautious vigilance that never quite faded. In the end, Mason's actions left a permanent mark on my life. I moved forward, but the memory of that keychain and the betrayal it represented remained a constant reminder of how quickly the familiar can become a shadow of its former self. I remember the day like it was yesterday, the sun setting over our suburban park, casting long shadows that danced with our laughter. That's where it all started, my wild ride with Ivy. She was the daredevil, the one who could never sit still, always chasing the next thrill. Me? I was the doubter, the voice of reason that somehow always got swept up in her adventures. We were just high school seniors, but Ivy had this spark, this reckless energy that was contagious. I can still see her, her eyes gleaming with mischief as she proposed our first misadventure. Buttering a park slide? It sounded insane, but there I was following her lead, the slide slick and shiny under the fading light. The thrill was short-lived, though. We ended up with broken bones, but even then, Ivy's laughter echoed louder than our pain. That was Ivy, unstoppable, a force of nature. And me? I couldn't resist her pull, even when every fiber of my being screamed caution, like the time she suggested skydiving. My heart raced at the thought, but there I was, strapped into a harness, the ground a distant blur below us. The adrenaline rush was unlike anything I'd ever felt, a mix of terror and exhilaration that left a mark on my soul. As we soared through the sky, I caught a glimpse of Ivy's necklace, a charm shaped like a key, glinting under the setting sun. It seemed insignificant then, just another piece of her quirky style. But looking back, I realized it was a hint, a whisper of the deeper significance that would unfold in the chapters to come. After our skydiving thrill, I thought I'd seen the last of Ivy's wild ideas. But no, there she was, dragging me into another adventure after a late-night horror movie. We were walking home when she spotted it, the Stacks, the old shuttered library that everyone said was haunted. Ivy's eyes lit up, and before I knew it, we were headed straight for it. I protested, of course. The place looked abandoned, with vines creeping up the walls and an eerie silence hanging in the air. But Ivy was already pushing through the overgrown entrance, and like always, I followed. As we approached, a strange scratching sound came from inside, making my skin crawl. But Ivy just grinned, her excitement infectious. The musty air hit us as soon as we stepped inside, the scent of old books filling my nose. Rows of dusty shelves stretched out before us, and for a moment, it felt like we were the only ones in the world. But something felt off, a sense of unease that I couldn't shake. We wandered deeper, and that's when we saw a book lying open on a pedestal, its pages yellowed with age. The title, The Eyes Beneath, sent a shiver down my spine. How could a book be open like that, in a place that hadn't been touched in years? It was as if it was waiting for us, beckoning us into a mystery that was just beginning to unfold. The mystery of The Eyes Beneath still hung heavy in the air when Ivy's curiosity led her to the pedestal. She found a hidden latch beneath it, and with a determined grin, she pulled it open, revealing a staircase leading down into the unknown. We descended, the air growing colder with each step. The corridor we entered was unlike anything I'd ever seen. The walls were lined with mirrors, each one etched with names that seemed to shimmer in the dim light. Faint whispers filled the air, a soft refrain that made me afraid. I wanted to leave, the unease from before now, a full-blown panic. But Ivy was enchanted, her eyes wide with wonder as she pressed on. Before I could protest further, a door slammed shut behind us, the sound echoing ominously through the corridor. We were no longer alone. The whispers grew louder, more insistent, and in the mirrors, I caught glimpses of shadowy figures moving just out of sight. Ivy's excitement had led us into something far beyond a simple adventure, and as the whispers swirled around us, I realized we were caught in a mystery that was just beginning to reveal its secrets. The whispers in the corridor led us to an underground archive room, filled with rows of cabinets and ancient tomes that seemed to hold the weight of centuries. It was then that he appeared, a shadowy figure with hollow eyes, his presence sending a chill through the air. He called himself the Archivist and claimed we were trespassing on something called the Memory Vault. His words were cryptic, filled with riddles that left us more confused than ever. He asked which memory we had come to return, his voice echoing ominously in the stillness. Ivy, ever the jokester, tried to lighten the mood, but her attempt only seemed to anger him. His rage was palpable, as he declared that we had awakened something that feeds on forgotten pain. Before we could react, he lunged at us, his attack sudden and fierce. We stumbled back, trying to defend ourselves, but his fury was relentless. In the chaos, his eyes caught the glint of Ivy's key necklace, the one she always wore. He called it the Vault's seal, his voice filled with a mix of recognition and dread. It was clear then that this wasn't just about us. Ivy's necklace tied her to the library's secret past, a past that was now very much our present danger. With the Archivist hot on our heels, we dashed through the underground archive, desperate to escape his wrath. We stumbled into a surreal labyrinth where bookshelves shifted and rooms changed the moment we looked away. It was like stepping into a dream or a nightmare where nothing stayed the same. As we navigated the ever-changing corridors, we stumbled upon old records that revealed a shocking truth. Ivy's great-grandmother had been a librarian here, and she had vanished under mysterious circumstances. The key necklace Ivy wore, the one the Archivist called the Vault's seal, had belonged to her. It was a piece of her family's past, a past that was now haunting us. In one fleeting moment, as we passed a mirror, Ivy caught a glimpse of her great-grandmother. She was weeping, her image ghostly and fleeting, mouthing the word run. The sight gave us goosebumps, a chilling reminder that we were entangled in something beyond our understanding. With the labyrinth shifting around us and the echoes of voices urging us forward, we knew we had to keep moving to uncover the truth behind the key and the vanished librarian before it was too late. Our frantic escape led us to a ceremonial room, its air thick with the scent of burnt books. In the center of the floor lay a broken seal, its fractured lines glowing ominously. The Archivist cornered us there, his eyes burning with a mix of desperation and fury. He demanded that Ivy restore the seal with her key necklace, warning that we'd be trapped forever if she refused. Ivy stood frozen, torn between her curiosity about the library's secrets and the fear of what restoring the seal might unleash. I pleaded with her, my voice shaking, urging her to do as he asked. We couldn't stay trapped in this nightmare. As the Archivist lunged at us, we fought back, using a page we had found earlier, an ancient sealing incantation. The words seemed to hold power, pushing him back momentarily. But the room began to shake, the walls trembling as if the very foundation was coming undone. With a determined look, Ivy threw her key into the broken seal. The moment it touched the fractured lines, a blinding light filled the room, and the walls started to collapse around us. We ran, dodging falling debris, the sound of the vault crumbling echoing in our ears. As we burst out into the night air, a final whisper chased us, chilling and ominous. Another will come. We didn't stop running until we were far away from the library, the weight of what we just experienced heavy on our hearts. Lying in my bedroom, the memories of that night at the library haunt me like ghosts in the reflection. Ivy and I used to be inseparable, but after what happened, I've been avoiding her. We've grown apart, the thrill of our adventures replaced by a lingering unease. The library, now condemned, stands as a silent reminder of the secrets we uncovered. But even though we escaped, the whispers haven't left me. They come to me in my dreams, faint echoes of voices that seem to know my name. I toss and turn, trying to shake them off, but they're always there, a constant reminder of the vault and the archivist. It's like a piece of that place is still with me, a fragment of the mystery that we couldn't fully unravel. And as I stare at my reflection in the mirror, I can't help but wonder if the whispers will ever fade, or if they're a part of me now, a haunting echo of the adventures that changed everything. I finally did it. Moved out from the shadow of my past into apartment 312. It's been 3 weeks, and the quiet here feels like a breath of fresh air. But last night, that peace was shattered. At exactly 3 a.m., my doorbell rang with this eerie 3-tone chime that sent chills down my spine. I jumped out of bed, heart racing, and peeked through the peephole. Nothing. No one was there. I tried to shake it off as a prank or a glitch, but the next night, it happened again. Same time, same chilling chime. I checked again, no one. By the third night, I was waiting for it, almost expecting it. And sure enough, 3 a.m. on the dot, that haunting sound echoed through my small apartment. This time, I flung the door open, ready to confront whoever was messing with me. But the hallway was empty, just like before. What's worse, I started hearing that eerie chime faintly during the day, like it was seeping through the walls. It's unsettling, and I can't shake the feeling that something isn't right in apartment 312. But I'm not ready to give up on my fresh start just yet. I need to figure out what's going on. The eerie chime from the doorbell started haunting me even during the day, echoing faintly through the walls of my apartment. It was like the sound had seeped into the very structure of the place. At night, I'd lie awake, hearing whispers that seemed to come from nowhere and everywhere at once. And then there was the shadow, a dark figure that would glide across my hallway, yet the lights never flickered. I tried talking to my landlord about it, hoping for some answers. But he just gave me this weird look and mumbled something about the apartment having history. That didn't exactly reassure me. Curiosity got the better of me, and I started exploring my new home more thoroughly. In the kitchen, I noticed a loose brick behind the fridge. Pulling it out, I found an old crumpled drawing tucked away. It was a child's sketch, showing a man with no face, ringing a bell. That sight scared me. On the bottom, it was signed with the initials KR and dated exactly 10 years ago. While doing laundry in the building's basement, I bumped into Claire, a reclusive neighbor in her late 30s. She seemed to know something about apartment 312. Turns out, it had been vacant for a decade after a guy named Kyle Reeves disappeared. His father was into some weird stuff, researching auditory illusions and temporal anomalies. Claire gave me this cryptic warning about the bell ringing 3 times and not to answer the door. It sent a chill down my spine, especially since it matched what I'd been experiencing. Then, she played an old cassette for me. It was the same eerie 3-tone chime I'd been hearing from Kyle's father's experiments. Last night, my sleep took me to a surreal dreamscape. I found myself in a hallway that seemed to stretch on forever, lined with countless doors. Each door was ringing, creating this rhythmic pattern that echoed through the endless corridor. It was disorienting, almost hypnotic. Then, a figure appeared blurry and shifting like static on a television screen. It whispered, "You opened the wrong one." Those words give me goosebumps even in my dreams. When I woke up, I noticed these strange burn-like markings on my wrists. They were shaped like door handles, and I had no idea how they got there. It was unsettling, to say the least. But the most haunting part of the dream was one specific door. It had the number 312 on it. just like my apartment. It was chained shut, and behind it, I could hear a child's voice crying. The sound broke my heart. I visited Claire's apartment, and it was like stepping into a time capsule. Old books and tapes were scattered everywhere, a testament to her relentless search for answers. She finally opened up about her brother, Kyle Reeves. It turned out he was the one who disappeared from apartment 312. Claire believed their father's experiments had opened a rift in time within the building. Kyle had reported dreams similar to mine before he vanished. She'd been trying to decode the meaning of the bells ever since. According to her, each tone represented a layer of reality. Present, past, and something she called the unformed. As she rummaged through her notes, she showed me a scratched-out journal entry. It read, "If you hear the chime during the day, the door is no longer yours." The words echoed the eerie feeling I'd been having, like the apartment was slowly slipping away from me. Things in my apartment were getting weirder by the day. The walls seemed to shift, and the light started behaving in ways that made no sense. And then, I heard it a fourth tone. It was distorted, broken, unlike anything I'd heard before. The original 3 chimes were now corrupted, and it felt like time itself was starting to loop. One evening, as I was standing in the living room, I saw something that made my blood run cold. I watched myself walk out the front door, but I was still standing inside. It was like I was seeing a replay of my own actions, but I had no memory of leaving. The apartment was no longer just a place to live. It had become a trap, a puzzle that was slowly unraveling my sense of reality. The fourth tone was a warning, a sign that whatever rift Claire had talked about was growing stronger. I needed to figure out what was happening before it was too late, before I was lost in the loops of time forever. With the clues from Kyle's sketches and Claire's research in hand, I knew I had to break into the basement of the building. It had been sealed off for decades, but I felt it was my only chance to unravel this mystery. After some effort, I managed to get the old door open. Inside, I found an ancient sound lab, dusty and forgotten. Amidst the clutter, I spotted a recording labeled Echo Door Final. The sound that filled the room was unlike anything I'd ever heard. It was a cacophony of chimes and frequencies that made the air vibrate. Suddenly, my apartment began to pulse with sound and energy. The walls seemed to breathe, and then, right before my eyes, a rift opened. From within it, I saw Kyle Reeves partially merged with the wall, his form distorted, but unmistakably alive. As the chimes began to play in reverse, Kyle mouthed 2 words to me. "Close the bell." It was a desperate plea, and I knew I had to act fast. The rift was a window into something beyond our understanding, and if I didn't do something, it might consume us all. Back in my apartment, everything was collapsing into a dreamlike reality. The walls seemed to melt and reform, and the air was thick with an otherworldly energy. I knew what I had to do. Kyle's plea echoed in my mind. Close the bell. Using Claire's cassette as a guide, I recorded a counter-frequency tone. It was a shot in the dark, but I had to try. As the clock ticked closer to 3 a.m., I set up the recording to play just before the haunting chime would sound. The moment arrived, and I hit play. The counter-frequency tone clashed with the eerie 3-tone chime, creating a dissonant symphony that filled the apartment. Then, in a blinding flash, the doorbell exploded in a wave of silence. The sound was so intense, it felt like the world itself had been muted. Everything stopped. The walls solidified, the air cleared, and time reset. The rift was gone, and with it, the haunting presence that had plagued apartment 312. I took a deep breath, realizing that, against all odds, I'd managed to rewrite the bell and close the door to the unformed. Months have passed since I left apartment 312. And now, a new tenant has moved in. They signed the lease, unaware of the haunting history that once plagued the place. As they settled into their new home, the landlord handed them the keys with a cryptic warning. If the bell rings at 3 a.m., don't answer. It's probably just the echoes. The new tenant looked puzzled, but shrugged it off, eager to start their new chapter. Little did they know, the echoes of the past still lingered in the walls, a reminder of the strange events that unfolded. But for now, apartment 312 was quiet, its secrets buried once more, waiting to see if history might repeat itself.